Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Nesbeth there with Success Story. And we're in the house once more this morning for Let's Unpack That. Thank you for joining us online and on air this morning. And this morning we have a jam-packed session for you. What's in a name, right, Latoya?
Yeah.
Own those names. Own those names.
Right, so this morning we have with us, of course, the fire starter, Latoya.
Thank you, Alric.
Yes, and we have Big G with us in the house.
Well, just riding with y'all this morning.
Oh, for sure. Always a great ride.
I'm in the guest seat this morning, so it's all good.
And with us this morning, we do have the one and only Arashpreet Jhajj.
Hi,
Welcome.
That's right. Jump on those like hotkey air horns for her.
Oh, for sure. Let's go. Do one an applause.
All right, you can do that too.
Of course, I'm running the board for the first time this morning, so definitely a learning curve for me. Not Big G, but definitely I'll be running this morning.
That's right. Don't judge him.
Of course. Let's get that chair going.
Man, talking about playing with the keys.
With a new toy.
They shouldn't have given me the toy this morning.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right. And so we're kicking off this morning's show, something that's pretty near and dear to our hearts this morning. But before we get into the show, we do have quite a few things that happened this week that we just wanted to highlight. One of those being something burning down, Latoya, fire starter.
Oh my
Lord.
gosh.
But even before that, we want to shout anyone out.
Yeah, I do have any shout outs this morning.
We actually do. Let's start with our guests. Anyone you want to shout out as we get things going?
Sure. I'd love to shout out my mom. I wouldn't be here without her today, so she's the number one woman in my life. So I'd love to shout her out.
What's her name?
Her name's Jhajj.
All right. Shout out to mom. Shout out to moms.
Yeah, but we didn't get her to introduce herself. We just have this person here, and people are wondering, who is she? So who are you, Arsh?
Thank you, Latoya. I'd love to introduce myself. So my name's Arashpreet. I am a mental health therapist in training, and I'm currently doing my psychology internship at Ray Define Wellness under the supervision of our lovely Latoya here, in which I take on a culturally informed and holistic approach to help people navigate life challenges. As a Punjabi woman, I know the struggles of trying to navigate daily life challenges while also trying to become palatable for the people around us. So in my role, I really try to help people navigate those struggles.
Awesome. Yeah. But you're not here as a therapist today, are you? No, you're not. So
I need you also to talk just a little bit more into the mic.
Okay, for
yeah,
sure.
It's a little bit into the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, so although you're very skilled, and I know you have clinical training because you work with me and I support you, the real reason you're here today goes beyond that. It goes to something that is very important to us, and it's within the naming and how we get anglicized and our names become issues here where we have to change and we have to fit in order to be palatable in certain spaces and certain societies. So thank you for coming and for hoping to be as vulnerable and sharing your stories with us. Big G, I think you had some shout out.
Yeah, there's one shout out that we needed to hit up, and it's a shout out to the listeners on My Radio 580 AM. So on Friday, My Radio partnered with Baba Nakak Trust Foundation. I'm horrible with names. My listeners are horrible with names.
A tongue twister.
It's a tongue twister. But it was a telethon, a radiothon rather, that was from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Friday. It was to raise money for the Guru Nanak Healing Garden, which is at the Manazowski Alberta Heart Institute. The goal was to raise $45,000.
How much did it hit?
We hit $45,000 in 90 minutes.
Wow!
Wow!
And raised over $50,000. We had folks coming in with their children, teaching the kids how to donate and give. And shout out to the My Radio fam for that. That was an awesome show of community spirit, community love, community generosity. Y'all give yourself a pat on the back, a high five. Yeah. If you want to donate still, just send an email to MyRadio580, and the crew here will kind of help you walk you through how that all works.
Amazing.
But yeah. So, and then also for everyone out there today, be safe on the road. It is the Visaki, did I pronounce that right? Oh, yeah, got it right. Yeah, Visaki parade is happening today down in Millwoods.
I was just going to talk about that.
Yeah. So
I was just going to remind us. And entry is free. Every meal is free.
Yeah.
And it's
Food.
you.
Free
Yeah,
food,
everything
man.
is free. Yeah.
Never say no to free
Free,
food.
free.
$10
But they
good
did
food.
caution.
Yep.
They did caution that parking is going to be a hassle.
Take the bus.
Because of the location. So you can take the bus, or you can park in a certain location and then Uber or something. So that promises to be a great
big
event. However, just remember that the parading happens and traffic goes slower, and all those who gets annoyed by it, choose some alternate routes. They already told you where they're going to be.
or park your car and join in the parade.
Yeah, just walk on. Just walk on. Start the
Problem
parade.
solved.
Yeah. Honestly, just
Blend in.
yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely. And so I think you had started, Latoya, with the burning down fire starter.
Oh,
Yes.
jeez. Oh, jeez.
Yes.
Well, lots of burning down has been happening. In media, there's a burning down with the Nottoway plantation in Louisiana. And we saw how colonization sometimes has no empathy, because there was one person being interviewed, and a white woman to be exact, and she was crying like a baby about the burning, while black people were on the sidelines just rejoicing that they didn't have to see such an eyesore that reminded them of the pain that their ancestors went through, and also their own intergenerational pain.
The memes were epic.
Oh my
Yes.
The
Lord!
TikToks were
Oh,
amazing.
goodness. Right?
I'm telling you.
I love the one with the fire guy, the firefighter. He's just sitting there on his little captain's chair drinking his water. He's like, "What do you want me to do?"
But I know fire is all about cleansing, so I don't care if you guys call me fire starter anymore, I must say. But there are lots of things in the news. We're following the case with the Diddy case, the Diddy trial as well.
That's a slippery slope.
Huh?
That's a slippery slope.
Oh my
Definitely.
gosh.
You'll never stop slipping.
And then there is also our guy whose son was killed, and he
He
Yeah.
took his own.
Rodney,
What's
Ronnie
his name?
Hinton.
I forgot. Yes. And do you see how they have curtailed his donations? Because he's getting so many donations now to assist with his expenses, and they have cut it off to only $200. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting one to follow, and hopefully we can explore that in a different segment, in how, depending on your identity, how you're treated by the system, right? So we plan to explore that in a future segment, but today, what we're talking about is, play it, Mr. DJ. Say my name, say my name. Come on, Mr. DJ.
I don't know. The vocals are pretty good in that one. I mean,
And
She could have that all by herself.
yeah, all by herself. Yeah, all by
we'll play it
herself.
afterwards. But I wore my Jamaica shirt today. And whenever I wear my Jamaica shirt, which is very often, or Jamaican colors, it means that I woke up in the morning feeling so proud to be Jamaican. And sometimes I have my children will say, ethnocultural kind of thing, where I'm just walking through the house being proud to be Jamaican and wonder what my mother would do if I wasn't Jamaican. All of these pieces, right? Because we have to own our culture. We have to own our identity. And the reason we have invited Arsh on this show is because, I'm getting to know her. She's my student. And we were talking about names. And
Because sometimes you just got to.
Say my name, say my name.
So we're having this conundrum with Arsh about what name. As first she said, my name is Ash. And I'm like, Ash? But this is so far off from your longer name. And she shared her story with us about why she arrived at Ash. And then why we're challenging her to be Arsh instead. So Ash, you'll take it away and talk to us about what inspired this shortening of name and this changing of name.
For sure. Okay, so, well, my
Mike.
full name is Arashpreet. And when I was younger in elementary school, it was considered a unique name. 10-letter name, I wore it proudly. And then as I got older, I hit junior high. Every kid wants to fit in then. Every kid wants to find their people, wants to find a sense of belonging.
Yes.
And I would meet people and we'd have these great conversations. And then they'd say, "What's your name?" And I'd say, Arashpreet. And I just knew that deer in the headlights look was coming. Those daunting huns were coming. And I would be petrified to say my name. Because they'd say, "Huh." And then I'd let them say it however they wanted to say. And then over time, my name's shortened to Arsh. People still couldn't say it. And then I was like, what can I do to make it more palatable to people? To make it that people didn't just label me as my name. People saw me. So I shortened it to Ash, the more anglicized version. And people took that in pretty well. People were okay with saying Ash, and it made me feel like I wasn't a stereotype. I wasn't labeled as someone who was weird or different. I felt like I was fitting in. But as Latoya mentioned, she's put me in this situation where I'm beginning to challenge that identity. And it really had me thinking when she asked me to come on this radio show. It made me think. And I felt uncomfortable for a moment because I was so used to hiding behind the name Ash that embracing Arsh seemed like a mission in itself. And I thought to myself, why? Why would going back to the name that I was given at birth, the name that has so much cultural heritage connected to it, be so uncomfortable?
Whoa.
That's deep.
That is deep. So you're telling me you went to high school, changed your name, and your parents had nothing to say about it?
Oh my gosh, Latoya. They had so much to say about it. I remember I was out with friends one time, and they were like, "Oh, where's Ash?" They were asking my mom, "Where's Ash?" My mom looked at them confused. "Who's Ash?" She's like, "Who is this person you're talking about?" And at first, there was so much pushback from my mom. She said, "Just call yourself Arsh. Why are you shortening your name to Ash?" And I was like, "Mom, you don't understand. You don't get it. I just want to fit in."
Well, moms will never get it. I mean, like, my full name is Gregory.
Yeah.
And so in Jamaica, like, you can tell people that have known me from Jamaica versus people that know me from Canada. The Canadians all call me Greg. People from Jamaica all call me Gregory. And the first time my mom heard someone call me Greg, she lost it. I did not name you Greg. Your full name is Gregory.
Yeah, exactly like that, honestly. She was like, "Oh my gosh, why are you calling yourself Ash?" And then after talking to her and saying that I just want to fit in, she herself started calling me Ash in public.
Oh, wow.
So when
So she was very supportive then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or she
Assimilated.
She just assimilated.
Yeah.
She knew that there was nothing she could do about it. She was supportive, but also she had to give up on something that was meaningful to her. Girl. It's funny because this morning or last night as I meditated on the topic, there were so many things that came up for me. So if you know anything about Jamaicans, they make joke about us all the time. They make joke about us all the time with names. This name, Latasha, Latoya, whatever it is, it's based on what we would say a mother and a father pairing together. So it's more a very union thing. And that is something that we knew in Jamaica. You don't mess with people's names. You can call people like a pseudonym. You can call people like AKA, but you never really spoil people's name. And that was one of the beautiful things. And I was a teacher back home in Jamaica for a while. And kids come in, and it's important to learn children's name and to be able to pronounce it, right?
Yeah. So, but then we also give you an. So here's the thing about
Jamaica.
I don't know about Sikh culture. You can tell me if this happens here, but there's a very unique thing that happens in Jamaica. It's where Alric will be his name,
Yeah.
but everybody call him Jim.
Yes.
And so we will all think his name is Jim,
Yeah.
but his name is actually Alric.
And you find out at the funeral.
Right.
So you go looking for Jim at the funeral, and then you find out that
Nobody
his
knows the name.
name
It's
is
Alric.
something. So the funny story with that, I think I was sharing it with somebody the other day. So my mother thought she named me after my father. So my Alric, don't laugh. So my father's name is Toyan Jones.
Yes.
Apparently, she thought that was the name. So my name is Latoya, coming from Toyan Jones. Only for me to my mother to find out that his name was actually Louis Whittingham.
Oh my gosh.
So for a long time, even as a child, when I found out how betrayed I was with thinking I was named after a father with a legitimate name, guess what? I felt like an outsider. I used to romanticize changing my name to Nostalgia something
Nostalgia
great.
Britannia.
But that is kind of the big deal for us as it surrounds with names. So
I'm curious. How does that work in Sikh culture with
Yeah.
that same phenomenon?
Oh my goodness, the same way.
Yeah.
Because I have family back home, and they'll tell me this person's name is so and so, and then I get a letter in the mail that we're supposed to deliver to them or send a package to them, and it's a completely different name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, who is this? And they're like, it's your auntie. Oh my goodness.
So the more cultures are different, it's the more we remain the same. It's the more we remain the same.
So we're not unique then.
We're all humans.
Before I tell you our story, because we have a similar story, and Alric will help me with that, right?
Yeah.
And why this topic is so important to us, and probably we'll do it after the break. But what's the meaning behind your name? How did your name come about?
That's a good question, honestly. And when I was thinking about that, growing up, I didn't ask what the meaning of my name was. I was hiding from it. So when you asked me, what is the meaning of your name? It made me sit and think. And then in literal translation, it means divine love, or love from the heavens. But I didn't see it that way. So it's
Because the world didn't
Drop one of
see
those
it
air
that
horns for
way.
that. Drop one of those air horns for that.
The
then.
world didn't see it that way. So if the world, lots of times we define ourselves and our identity based on what is palatable, what is acceptable by the outsider, who is the dominant, we would say, that seems to have the power to dictate to us what is acceptable from what's not acceptable. Thank you for sharing that. When I put on my T-shirt today, Greg, and I thought about my Jamaican self, I said, boy, when I share my story on TV, on radio, somebody's either going to call me the biggest yammed ever, So yammed in Jamaican terms is when a woman is so in love or infatuated with a guy that they lose themselves. So here's my story. So my children all have AL names. And my husband has an AL name. Because his father has an AL name.
Oh yes, and the whole tribe.
Oh, look, you want to tell them?
Oh,
Alric?
goodness
You want to
gracious.
tell
So,
them.
so my father started a real trend. So when you walk around the community where I'm from in Jamaica, which is Bottom Pen, big up Bottom Pen,
Yeah.
they will tell you that that family over there, they're just the Als. So my father, his name is Alan, and he named all of us with first names starting with the letters A-L. So I'm Alric, we have Ali, Aldine, Alicia. And so when the boys started having kids, we just thought it was, appropriate
Keep it
to,
going.
Keep it going.
Keep it going.
to honor that tradition. So we all named our kids names starting with AL. So you know that when it's time for a family reunion or when we get together, especially my mom, she just blurts out any one of the AL names. And everyone just looks because they know, okay, we're all on it. And she's, oh, I'm talking about you. And so it's like a trend. And so both our kids are named AL names. So one's Alxavier and one's Alzari. And so when we got here to Canada, they're in the Francophone school system. And when we got here to Canada, what we found is that their names were being changed to sound Francophone. So they would come home and they'd be reporting and they would say, the teacher called their name, which is Alxavier or Alzahi. And you know, mommy got on their backs for that, right? Just like your mom was saying,
I didn't name it that.
yeah, your name is Gregory. So.
No, and my kids would cry. My kids would cry. Like whenever they go out introducing themselves, they would be like, "Oh, my name is Asahi, Asahi," and I'm like, "Excuse me, names don't change." And they would be like, "Mommy, that's my French name," and I'm like, "No, names don't change based on language. The names remain the same. Let them pronounce your name." And they would be so upset with me, so upset. My kid would cry. My daughter would cry because I say, correct them.
Right.
Tell them that your name is this. Don't change for them. Don't adjust. And it's very important to me because as you learn about the Indigenous experience in Canada, and you equate it to the slave trade, the human trafficking that happened with Black people, it was important for me to ensure that we don't have names being replaced or changed. And so I remember the residential school experiences where names were adjusted to numbers. And that was the first dehumanization that happened. And it would a hell of a would I allow my kids to be dehumanized by changing their names. So names are important to me, and I think we're coming up on a break. So right after the break.
Not quite.
Not quite yet? Okay, great.
Oh, you'll see the button flashing in front of you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But-
guys,
but-
I'm still new
but-
here.
One of the things I always say to my kids, because to be honest, at the beginning,
See, I knew
oh,
it.
and now
I
we
knew
get
it.
the
I
warning. So,
knew it.
so she
See,
was
I
actually,
knew it.
She was
she was
there.
actually
I knew
almost
it.
there. She's
Well, we'll be
she's
back
second,
after
so
this.
we'll be right back.
We have a comment.
So welcome back.
That's right. Welcome back. We have a comment in the chat. Danielle Brown was asking what parade. I don't know.
the
Arsh,
Gurdwara.
do you want to tell people what the parade is going on today? Do you know anything about it?
I do know a little bit about it.
Yeah, hit us up.
I don't know where it's starting, but it's called the Nagar Kirtan. And so it's a parade where we take our Guru Granth Sahib across the city, across a certain path. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in Millwoods around. the camp.
Yes, but the Gurdwara is right here off, it's in the Tamarack area. So that is going to be the grounds, I think, where they're going to have the gathering taking place. It's usually very well supported. So, yeah.
So, yep. Check it out, guys.
Check out.
So
Good
we
days.
also
And again,
have,
free food.
we also have some private message that came in, and there's a comment here that I'm going to read and share. It says, also teach our children not to shorten their names and make them correct until people get it right. In the pediatrician's office or wherever, I correct them. My hope is that when she starts understanding, she will correct them and never shorten her name or make it easy for anyone. And then there's the other comment says, we're a Nigerian Jamaican family, and so my daughter has Nigerian name. I realized within the Nigerian culture how important names are and the meanings behind it. It's very powerful. It's what you say about them. It's like speaking into their destiny. So we have to be sure that they understand that and always correct people. Now I feel ashamed. My kid is named after X-Men.
Which X-Men?
Professor
Xavier.
Xavier. So my kid is an Al plus Xavier.
Oh, Alxavier.
So I think he's gonna learn how to read minds or something, or telepath.
Professor X is a powerful mutant.
I
yeah.
agree. If I could name my kid Wolverine, I would. But Al Wolverine didn't sound very good, so I'm like, well, let's find something else.
Well, I mean, one of my good friends, her child is basically named Superman.
Ooh.
the first time I was like, you named your kid Superman? Not Superman, but if you know the comics,
Yeah.
you know what Superman's real name
Yeah,
is.
Clark Kent.
Yeah, no, that's not it.
No.
That's not
Khalil.
Kal-El.
Okay.
Kal-El. And so I was like,
Yeah.
you name your son okay. And then another one of my good friends, his kid's name is Johann. Now they're German. So after he named his kid, I was joking. I was like, so is it Johann Schmitz, the Red Skull? Like,
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Even though my son's name and my daughter's name are both coined based on each other, the names that we gave to them was to also project them, destine them for greatness. So if their middle names are actually language-based middle names, so we were very intentional about what their middle names would be. And that is why they're in francophone schools, because one of my son's middle name is French, and one is Spanish, and the other one is, I think, Italian.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's Italian. One is Italian, one's French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my son is fully conversant, fully French.
Yeah.
He
He's
speaks
trilingual.
Spanish because we both spoke Spanish to them when we had them. And then my son got the Italian, but not in language, in food. He loves pasta. So I don't
He's a
know.
chef.
And he's a chef.
Yeah.
But
I had a question for
I was gonna ask.
Arsh.
So go, Big
So
G.
Arsh.
Yes.
But Arsh, your full name is
Arashpreet.
Arashpreet.
Yes.
Okay. So Arashpreet, what's that experience like with your name on the job? Like, how does that translate when you're at work? Like, how do you find people interacting, the customers and coworkers? And do you see it as like a barrier to success or a pathway to success? How do you approach that in the professional setting?
100%. Okay. So when I was initially applying to jobs on my resume, I would put Arashpreet, and then I had that fear
Yeah.
that they're not even going to look at my resume. They're going to see an ethnic name, trash. And so even on my resumes, I shortened it to Ash. And then at my workplace, I had one manager, and he was adamant on calling me by my full name, and I despised it. He would say Arashpreet all the time, and then my friends and fellow coworkers would look at me in confusion. Who's Arashpreet? And then I even had some people say, oh, I prefer to call you Ash. And so that just strengthened my reason to call myself Ash. But after working with Latoya, I'm navigating that differently, and I'm seeing that we shouldn't consider our names as a barrier to success. Rather, we should let it speak for us.
But you brought in something very realistic, and I'm glad Greg asked that question because it's real, right? We know that there is a system that is in place where we have to either be whitewashed or we have to hide parts of us in order to pass, in order to be seen. And it's a shocker for me when I moved here because, as you're saying right now, in our applications, if you have a name that sounds too ethnic, it's going to get thrown out.
Exactly.
You're dismissed. I think we had met a guy, Alric, a few years ago, Mohammed. Brilliant. So skilled, so qualified. And he had his job applications thrown out because of his name. So he changed his name on his application, and he was sharing that he got called in for an interview. And when they realized that he was a Muslim man, an Arabic-looking man, he didn't get the job. He was sent away. And that is something very real because when we lived in Regina, we had met a Nigerian sister, and she gave us English names. And I'm like, oh, girl. Even in Jamaica, when we have Nigerians living in Jamaica, we know what the names are. Like, no Nigerian is ever Johnson, Campbell, whatever. Like, where you come from with that name? And she said, And we found that out too when we went to the barber shop, Alric. Remember? The guy said we have, like, based on the Nigerian culture, we have two sets of names. We have the cultural names that we use for Nigerian purposes, and then we create these westernized names. And I was like, how horrifying is that? What's the message that is sent that you have to shape shift your identity to fit into spaces? So take off this, or not shape shift, but code switch. And we code switch with languages. We code switch with the clothes that we wear to work. We code switch with how we comb our hair. But why is it that we have to code switch with who we are as an innate being?
And as you're mentioning the code switching right there, I just have a question there. How difficult is it right now for you kind of working that internal battle to kind of reclaim that name, having stuck with Ash for so long? What does that feel like right now?
That's a good question, Alric. Honestly, it feels uncomfortable, if I'm being completely real. Having stuck with Ash for so long, every time, because in family settings, people still call me Arsh, right? Where I'm around people at like temples or in community settings, people call me Arsh. Punjabi people don't call me Ash. And then I had that constant disconnect in my head of who I am. Am I Ash or am I Arsh?
Yeah.
So now trying to find a blend of both identities under the name Arsh has been quite difficult. It's
But what's so hard in pronouncing Arsh, though?
Well, I just got a very interesting comment come through on my phone here from my brother BK.
Yeah.
His daughter is a PhD, has a PhD in psychology. She's a professor, and she actually did a piece on resume whitening.
Yeah.
And so,
that happens.
That's something that people can check out in terms of that work, that study.
Yeah, that study.
On resume whitening. It's
Yeah.
really relevant to because she's also Sikh as well, and so
That's funny because you know what? I'm sorry, Alric.
Yeah.
I'll get you to go, but I was in Jamaica. I always tell people that my name is as white as it gets. My last name, it doesn't get any whiter than that, and that's owing. My grandfather was fully white, right? And so I have a white name. It's called Whittingham. The most uncomfortable thing is, and it's not that Jamaica is big on names. Like, you have a name, you have a name. Like, we don't care. But I didn't like the name. First of all, I was the last for my name to be called because it's W, unless somebody has a Z name or something. But also, I wanted to sound black, especially when I thought about the global piece. I was like, okay, Latoya is black, but Whittingham, Lord of mercy, like, how do I? So, for many reasons, I changed my name. I embraced Alric's name.
And she switched into a Scottish name,
Right? As if. But when I came here, it brought such a reality for me how the Whittingham name would have gotten me that privilege, right?
Yep.
And it was so profoundly eye-opening, enlightening for me to recognize how important a name was in this setting, because we never had that context. Like, there are other ways in which we're discriminated in Jamaica or oppressed in Jamaica, but never really about a name. So I'm happy you shared that piece about the resume whitening and the whitening of our names, or the whitewashing of our names in order to fit in. But the concern for me, and we've talked about this before, people have a problem in pronouncing Arashpreet, like
That's just two syllables.
Are you
That's
kidding
just
me?
two syllables.
Like,
I know.
and you were, because one of the difficult things I had to bring into realization, that's the reframing for Arsh, was, hey, what's so hard in pronouncing Arsh? Because there's an English name where people will say, oh, you're harsh in your tone. You are so harsh. Your tone is so threatening. They say that to us in work all the time. Oh, that's a harsh tone that you used with me. The tone policing. It's easy for them to pronounce that harsh.
Yeah.
But when it comes to
Just dropping the H.
recognizing that this is meaningful to you, it didn't happen. Like, I've heard people call me Victoria. Like, how close is Victoria to Latoya?
Oh, come on. Toyota.
This is not about me today.
Toyota.
We've had people saying they cannot pronounce Latoya. And I'm like, if you can say Benjamin Netanyahu, why can you not say Latoya?
And if you can say Zelensky,
You can
you
say
can pronounce
Latoya.
anything. But I was reflecting last night. How is it that they learn all the footballers' names, all the NFL people's names, all the sports people, they pronounce the names, and if they're superstars, it's no problem.
Well, that's fandom. that's fandom. I mean, like I remember the first name that I learned watching the world. The very first, I distinctly remember the first time I watched the World Cup was Germany versus England, 1982. No, Germany versus Italy, and it was Karl-Heinz Rummenigge,
Oh, that's
captain of
that's
this Germany.
right.
right? I didn't know what I was watching until 4 years later in Mexico, because I was like a little, I was like 4 years old at the time.
Right.
But that name stuck with me until 4 years later in Mexico. I was like, oh, that's what I was watching. That's who that guy is.
Yeah.
Right? But it's this fandom with like, fans will gravitate to.
But as
that-
go, Ari.
So I guess we all need to be famous.
Or fans. I had a question though. Speaking of fans and fans, now, in Jamaica, everybody's eventually gets a nickname,
Yeah.
and it's usually based on how you look. Usually, tall man, short man,
Mr. Chin.
yeah, broad back, something like that. right?
Foodie.
Food, yeah, something.
Yeah.
My nickname in high school was Pig. Right. What about in, say, growing up, like in your household, your culture? Is that like a thing with nicknames? And how do people get those nicknames? And is it something that's embraced?
It is embraced. So I feel like the more extravagant change-ups, like where the name is completely different, happen more so back home. But here, I had a few nicknames, but they were very similar to my name. Ashu, Arsh. But even with those nicknames, I remember as a little girl growing up, I used to be called Ashu. And then I was a minority in my neighborhood, and the little white kids would be like, oh, a shoe? Like a shoe?
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh no. And then my brother would call me that in my neighborhood while we were playing. And I was like, oh no, we cannot say that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it is, you mentioned a good point about how we're able to say such long, extravagant names of all these famous people. And I really think it's just deliberate ignorance when you're meeting people.
Keeping our history
We're
and
gonna
flight
come back after
alive,
the break.
Well, let's pay
honoring
some
our
bills.
heroes.
We're back.
Welcome back.
We
Home stretch.
are.
Uh-huh. Time's flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about the height of nicknames and pet names, and your brother calling your nickname on your pet name on the street, and kids are like, eh.
Yeah, it wasn't taken too well, so yeah.
Okay.
So we've spoken about names and nicknames and the importance of cultural names, but I have a story to give. Real story in my clinical practice, and then I want you to respond to that, and all of us can chime in, right? So I had, a few years ago, I was doing therapy with a Chinese client. And for a long time, her name was an English name. So we developed trust, and we started talking about her partner. And I said, what's your partner's name? And she said, oh, no, you won't be able to pronounce it. And I'm like, why? And she said, oh, no, you can just call him, let's say she said Ben. Call him Ben. I said, no. We're going to honor his identity in this space. This is a decolonizing space. We bring our authentic self. And she said, I said, test me. And she gave me like a Chinese name. And when I pronounced the name, she started crying right there in the therapy session. She started crying. And when I asked her why, eventually when she was settled, she said, because nobody has made the effort to pronounce our names. And that is why I use an English name, because I'm tired of people not making the effort to pronounce my name. So although we're talking about this topic and it sounds light and it sounds airy, the reality is when we talk about saying my name, we're not talking about people who make a mistake in pronouncing our names. Like, people do make mistakes. We want to make room for that. But we're talking about people being intentional and mindfully saying, you know what, I want to learn your name. I want to honor you and value you and your lineage and your identity by knowing exactly what your name is, even if I have to pronounce it a million times in order to get it. But the reality is we're in a Canada where we love to use the word multicultural, and multicultural looks good in that we have a picture that shows a Black person, an Asian person, a white person, and all shades, a person with a hijab, and whatever the case is. But is that really just on paper? Are we getting to the point where we are truly making ourselves multicultural or even decolonial, if I'm going to use that name, in identifying and recognizing people for who they are authentically, so that we don't have to hide any parts of us, because that's what true acceptance is about. So how is it for you to have your name fully accepted? You spoke about some identity issues. You spoke about the psychological impact. Do you want to go into that at your comfort level?
Of course, I can definitely go into that.
Mike.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I can definitely go into that for you. I feel like your name is not just a label. And I've always considered it like that. Like, oh, it's just my name. You know, call it what you want, but see me for who I am.
Whoa, we can drop something for that. That's so profound.
But as we've talked about it and as I've been deliberating on it, but my name is who I am. It encompasses my deep cultural roots. It has a story behind it. It gives me a sense of belonging. And I've spent my whole life running from that sense of belonging.
Whoa, yeah.
So what you said with your story from your clinical practice of that client who broke down in tears, it's not something you realize on a daily basis, but it's something you realize when you get what you've been craving your whole life, but you didn't know you were craving. That sense of acceptance.
Yeah.
Now, there are some moments where it is advantageous to maybe tweak the name a little bit. And this is a true story from when I lived in Japan. Right? So I taught English in Japan for 10 years. Well, I didn't teach that. I lived for 10 years, taught English for like 4 or 5 years, and worked in a magazine. But when I was teaching English, we had a coworker, colleague. He was Nigerian. And anytime he would introduce himself, Japanese women would just like, they'd turn pale, really uncomfortable. Like, it was really obvious. And so I had my own class. I had a group chat lesson with some of the ladies, and I just wanted to find out why. Why do you react this way to his name?
Yeah.
And when they told me what his name translated to into Japanese, I immediately went to him and said, "Bruh, you can't use that.
Gotta change that.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
I get where you're that name means a lot, but here,
It means something else.
the meaning is so far gone that you can't. There's no recovery. It was overly sexually explicit content. I was like, you cannot. To me and you, this good.
But to them, it meant a whole different thing. Right?
Yeah, so there are times when you may have to especially if you're traveling internationally.
Yeah.
Where it can be advantageous to do it. Not all the time, but his case was a really extreme case.
Exactly.
But isn't that a situation where it's choice? He made the choice to change it. It's not where he's
forced
forced to
upon you.
conform.
Yeah, it's not forced upon.
He makes the change because
The situation
of the
presents
situation.
itself. Yeah.
That's so different. We're force fed changing our names though.
Yeah.
In this context, you don't have a choice. You have to change your name because your teachers are going to mispronounce it. They make no effort. You're in a class with a teacher for a whole semester, a whole year, and they're like, butcher your name and do all kind of stuff, right? No effort to know you, no effort to,
Well, my friend Okama just messaged me, and she was saying, within the Canadian system has to be more accepting of who we are. With her daughter's name, for example, the public school board always messes it up in the system, and it's a constant battle with
To get it corrected.
To get it corrected.
Yeah.
And so,
And we know that firsthand. But you know, one of the things that's just really heartwarming is initially our kids, as Latoya said, like my daughter used to cry just to go through that mental process to say, hey, I have to start standing up for my name. Now we actually hear her correcting people.
Yeah, we
right.
had that experience yesterday.
So we're going places and people are calling her something else, and she's like, no, it's Alzari.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So she's owning that now. And one of the things that I always try to do is wherever I go that people wear their name tags, and I always do this as a social experiment. Just use someone's name when
That's
addressing
true,
them.
Alric. You
And
always
you
do that.
see the smile come to their
Yes,
face as if
they perk
you
up.
recognize me. I'm not just a
Yes.
person working here.
Yes.
Right? And so it brings a whole lot to the table when people hear you using their name. Because as you said, Ash, your name is your nature, right? It's your identity, it's your culture. Everything is wrapped up in that. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, what a wonderful way to kind of close out this segment. It's a 3-part segment, and we're starting on a very thought-provoking, insightful note with you, Arsh, and we're happy to have you. And it's really just to reiterate to individuals that our names, as you rightfully said, is part of showing that we see you. It's a part of recognizing that all of our parts are present in this space. And it's just a basic politeness. People always talk about, oh, you need to be polite. It's polite to try to pronounce somebody's name. And it is so commonplace for us to go in spaces, even in Black spaces now, it is being imported, where individuals are so accustomed to changing their names that when they come into spaces, they're like, oh, my name is this, my name is that. And they're like, nah, give me your whole name. Let's not just do this in this space where you're supposed to feel belonged. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of acceptance. I don't like to use the word tolerance. I believe that we create spaces for ourselves when others don't want to accept us. And so Arsh, Gregory, Alric, Latoya, and all the folks out there who are listening to us and have their own stories about how we try to fit in spaces, whether it's our name, because that's where it starts, or something else, we are saying that we hold space for you. We hold space for you to recognize that your whole part is acceptable. Doesn't matter where you are, unless your name is
by my man there in
creative.
Japan, creating controversy. Unless you have creating controversy. But that was a funny moment in Japan. We're like, we sat him down like, bro.
We have a we had a little jingle that we had created, because when we were coming up with this topic, Arsh helped us with the graphics as well. So thank you, Arsh. And she said,
shout out.
Shout out to you, Arsh, and said, let your name echo. Don't shrink it. Let your name echo. Don't shrink it. Don't silence it. Don't swap it out to survive. Because in reality, we're not surviving. All we're doing is being passive and adjusting so that people can make space for us, when in reality, it's not making us any better, right? So why don't we be bold and audacious this week in just practicing one thing? Say my name, say my name. All right.
Sweet, awesome. Well, that's part 1 of the unpacking. We'll unpack part 2 next week with the return of the Phoenix. That's right. Phoenix will be in the house. But, the
Phoenix, and we also should have Ranty from the African Caribbean Food Bank as well coming in with her. And then we have quite a few options for our 3rd and final segment, including that we want to invite some kids in as well to talk about their personal experiences with their names being anglicized or butchered or whatever it is. What does that look like? Because our era a few years ago is different from now. So we'll see.
Sweet. And then coming up right after this, we've got Miss Laura with Latin Hour. We'll be back next week Friday with the Next 48. Of course, next Saturday, we'll be back with my partner in crime, Danny, with the Weekend Morning Show. And we'll be unpacking more stuff next Sunday. So then, Alric, how did it feel to be in the driver's seat?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot to get used to, but I'm slowly getting there.
All right.
Thank you, Alric.
Arashpreet, thanks for riding with us this morning.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
Awesome. We'll see y'all on the flip side.
For sure.